this episode of the Leadership Speak series, I chat with Ms Vasvi Bharat Ram, Joint Vice Chairperson of the Shri Schools, Delhi, and member of the Executive Committee on the Shri Schools. As a leader in the education sector, Ms Vasvi Bharat Ram is closely involved in the running of India's most premier and well-known education institutions. She is strongly focused on cultural values in the educational institutions rather than on exams and marks. She works to make education available to the underprivileged, not only in formal studies, but also their inclusion in all school activities on par with all other students. The story she has shared in this chat is very relevant to youngsters and students like me. We get a glimpse into the business of education and the responsibility teachers and educators bear towards the betterment of society. Let's hear Ms. Vasvi Bharat Ram's perspective on education in India in the 17th episode of the Leadership Speak series.
Shri ka sundar aale vidyalaya Shri Ram. Shri ka sundar aale vidyalaya Shri Ram. बीज लगाए संस्कारों के सींचे पौधे प्यार से हम तेरी सद्गुण की शाखाएं विकसित अभिराम. बीज लगाए संस्कारों के सींचे पौधे प्यार से हम तेरी सद्गुण की शाखाएं विकसित अभिराम.
So my first question for you is, education is a constitutional right in India, but its provision falls well below its adequate standard. The education industry in India is not as prosperous and mature as in the US or the UK. What systems do you feel should be placed into the country to ensure rapid growth in the education sector from a profit point of view as well as the people's point of view?
Okay. So firstly, thank you for inviting me, Rehan. It's an honor to be here with you. And it's a great thing that you are doing, getting these leadership sound bites. And I'm sure they'll help a lot of kids. So very, very well done, firstly.
Thank you so much. The honor is all mine.
So, I completely agree with you. And in a country like ours, we can never have too many schools and we can never have, in fact, too many hospitals too. So I really do believe that the government should encourage whoever has a passion and whoever wants to open a school, and they should give incentives to them. They should give them like maybe subsidies on land, maybe other things that actually encourage people to open schools. Because speaking for myself, as of right now, it's not easy. The land is the first thing. It's so expensive. Putting up the building is so expensive. We have our foundation supports our schools. So, we have that privilege. But if somebody was to set up a school today and they did not have that option, the school has to be self-sustaining at least beyond a few years, right? So the government should help. They should definitely encourage people to open more schools, more hospitals. They should also give education institutions a little broader framework, a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more freedom. Not saying that there should not be general rules. Of course, every board has their own rules. Every state government has their own rules. But within that, there should be flexibility. There should not be that, you have to close for pollution, or you have to close because the weather's so cold or weather's so hot, because different schools are equipped in different ways. And I do understand that that works for government schools. But if we do have air conditioning in certain schools, allow them to function, because everyday loss is a loss in education for the children.
Right.
So I'm just saying they shouldn't paint everybody with the same brush. The other thing that they can encourage is a public private partnership. So for instance, a school like Shri Ram or a school like any other school could partner up with a government school. Okay, so we have almost like a mentor-mentee program, okay, where we could share our knowledge, our learnings, do teacher training for those teachers, and sort of do a partnership where the government schools which are there, which are actually all in prime locations with the best of land, and some of them have very good facilities also, it can help them to revive their pedagogy, their teacher training, the accountability on teachers if they do a public-private partnership with another school.
Totally.
And the last thing I wanted to say was that, we had a model where we in the afternoons, so Sriram went on till 2:30, and then post 2:30 in the afternoon, we opened up our gates and we welcomed in a school called Vidya, which is a not-for-profit school for the underprivileged. And so they got to use our labs, our classrooms, our facilities, but they were with their own peer group. The medium of instruction was Hindi, and it worked as a very, very good model, actually. So those are all things that the government could do to enhance education.
Right. Especially the private public partnership. I think hopefully someone from the government will watch this and this can be implemented into the.
It has been discussed many times, but somehow it just hasn't got to any kind of fruition.
Totally. Speaking about what you were telling us about the Vidya school, my next question for you was, poverty is a cycle. The more uneducated population increases, the less the economy develops. Does Shri Ram school help the underprivileged from the education perspective? Furthermore, how does your school implement gratitude in daily life, and how are the students giving back?
So this is very, very important to us. Just generally building a culture of sensitivity and empathy amongst our student body is really one of our core values. So as because of the RTE Act, most schools have 25% children who are
Right.
economically weaker section, and BPL, basically below the poverty line. And so that is a mandate from the school, from the government. But we go way above that, because the mandate is just to provide the tuition free. But we also do everything else, because we do not want those children to look or feel different from the rest of the kids. So we give them school lunch, we give them uniform, or we give them books. If the other kids are going on a school trip, we ensure that those children go for that. And we also have a sort of like a bridge program where it's almost like a little bit of a tuition system where we help the children to catch up. So doing justice to the 25% children in our school is a very, very important part of our philosophy. And we're constantly trying to see how we can help them further, how we can bring their parents more in the fold, because many of the parents are also not educated, so they're unable to kind of help them at home. So to provide them whatever structures and scaffolding we can do. The other thing, and in fact, we do not allow them to be called EWS students. We call them pupils. So that's a very important thing for us, because we don't want anybody referring to them as EWS students. They are our pupils, and they're as important as anybody else. We also have, for our own students, with this is pre-COVID now, Rehan, we had a Balwadi running in our school where our 9, 10, 11, 12 students used to teach children of migrant labor who used to work in the neighboring areas. Those kids used to come into school and they were taught by our students, and fun days were organized by our students, and they taught them dancing, and they organized like a fun day with bouncies, and so like a lot of personal interaction apart from just teaching them. And through our foundation, which is the SRF Foundation, we are supporting about 60 schools in Haryana. So these are schools in the Mewat area, and they're government schools. But what we are doing with them is we are making sure that their infrastructure is okay, their classrooms are decent, they all have toilets, so that the girls are not coming to school because of that reason. But more than that, we are also working with their principals. We are working with their teachers for teacher training, for bringing in good learning practices. So all these things, we are doing, and our students also go and volunteer at these schools. So all in all, it's part of our philosophy. We're not just doing it because it's mandated, and we very much want our children to be part of this journey.
Wow, I think that's amazing, especially you guys doing more than what the 25% that is mandatory. And I'm so glad to see that this is happening in mostly every school now in Delhi.
Yes,
So,
yeah, it's actually the 25% is mandatory, but what and how much you do is up to you.
yeah, definitely. I think what and more you do definitely shows how you are as a school. So that's amazing. So
Thank you.
my next question for you is, how do you measure growth in terms of growth financially and as a business in the education industry? Most industries can quantify their year-on growth in revenue. What's the parameter in the education industry?
You know, so we are not so as I told you, we are part of the SRF Foundation.
Right.
Okay, so it's not a for-profit business venture for us. Shri Ram School is a passion for us, and so our business we have the ability that our business can support it. But of course, after 30 years, every venture that you start should be self-supporting. So that's what our mission is. That we don't take out a penny from it. The idea is not to run it as a business. So it's part of our foundation, firstly. So our philosophy is slightly different to maybe other school owners who have started it as a business.
Right.
But of course, we would like to run it as efficiently with the best corporate practices, and it must be self-sustaining. So many schools would consider maybe exam results as a sort of parameter to see how well a school is doing. But for us, it's never been about the toppers. It's always, if we measure our exam results, we see what is the school average, and has the school average gone up? Okay, because for us, that would be an indicator of success if the school average has gone up, not if one kid has got 100%. So our parameters are slightly different. Happiness quotient is extremely important to us. The happiness quotient of our students, the happiness quotient of our teachers, because if our teachers are not happy, we cannot create a happy school, and also the happiness quotient of our parents. So it's the whole community, and the happiness quotient of the community is very, very important to us. So Shri Ram is an open door school. Parents are in and out. We welcome them. Their suggestions are welcome. We feel it's the community that actually educates the child, and we do it together. And so the important thing for us is creating, so a measure of success for us is creating a great culture. Every kid should want to come to school. Every teacher should want to come to school. And then we feel we have succeeded.
I think that is amazing, especially the happiness quotient. I mean, these days, everybody has so much pressure, and having that small bit of happiness is so important. So that kind of leads me to the next question that I wanted to ask you is that how do you guys ensure that, how does Shri Ram School ensure that every child is learning without the immense pressure lingering over them at all times?
Yeah. Well, there is no doubt that the Indian system is built in with a lot of pressure, and there's a huge amount of course, and and not even the Indian system, all systems, they have certain parameters, and you have to kind of fulfill them because the boards require it. But at least in our junior school, where we have no such diktat, it's so wherever it is, we try, whichever class, we try and make it as experiential, as non-threatening, as fun as possible for the children. We try, so starts with, of course, providing the best facilities. So if it was online, it was, we were fully prepared because we had already given all our teachers laptops, including sports teachers, including dance drama teachers. It was not that only the academic teachers had got it, Then they asked for iPads because teaching science, they needed that. So whatever facility is required to make the teaching learning experience more meaningful, we are happy to provide it. That is our focus. In fact, our focus has never been fancy buildings and marble floors and things like that. Our buildings are pretty basic, but in the equipment and the teacher training and things like that, we invest in a lot. We do not give exams till class 8. That's one big differentiator. We try and make it learning for the sake of learning, not just learning for the sake of exams. Try and keep it as stress-free as possible so that, see, the kids eventually have to give exams. So at some point you need to bring them in, but at least, up to a certain point where they can enjoy studies, and they can do it without that amount of stress. We also get students to teach students. So sometimes a student is best taught by a student, and they understand where the other child is struggling. So we also try and do peer teaching and peer mentoring, and uh, teachers, even beyond school time, are available to give a lot of help and support to children, even if it is required one-to-one. So the kids can reach out to the teacher, they can schedule a time, they can, go over a concept in a small group. And all this is really important now, even more, Rihan, because, 2 years, things have been online.
Right.
And there is a difference, and there has been gaps in learning and learning loss, and some concepts have been difficult. So this is something I think that everybody is going to have to do, because it's just, children need that help. The other thing we do is that we try and give the calendar of the whole year in advance. Of course, with COVID, that's not been happening, because we've had to go back and, change things around as we go along. And but otherwise, we used to give a calendar of the year in the beginning, so the kids know when the projects have to be given, when the first term exams are, when the second term exams are, so that they can also plan a little bit for themselves. And if they stick to that calendar, it just makes life a little bit easier. And apart from that, because the studies are an inevitable part of it, we try and do lots of fun activities for them, lots of stress busting activities, like book week, where they all come dressed up as their favorite character, or lots of jam sessions, and all kinds of literally just fun things, apart from the MUNs and the debates and all that, which are a little bit more serious, and the science fairs and all that. I'm talking about literally just fun things where they can let their hair down, and kids who may not always be academic or sporty can also show off their talents. So everybody gets an opportunity to shine.
Totally. I think that is amazing. I think because of all of this, today Shri Ram is one of the best schools in Delhi, probably the best.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
So my next question is, Lady Shri Ram's College is an extremely prestigious college. It's one of the best in Delhi or even in India. One of the best in the country, actually. So with the new demand of studying abroad in the US, Canada and UK, do you feel it has affected Indian colleges? Initially, apart from the experience, what do you feel are the major differences in education in, suppose, UK or US in comparison to a school like Shri Ram in India?
Okay. So yeah. Thank you. Lady Shri Ram is a very prestigious college, and I have the privilege of sitting on the board. So I have seen it very closely. So Indian colleges are not affected because of just the population that we have. So if it's like there are people banging on the door to get in, so they haven't actually been affected. But what has happened is that lot of children who either who can let's just, I'm just saying it as it is, who can afford it, okay, are choosing to go abroad because of not just the education but the wider exposure that they get. Okay, the other reason why children are almost forced to go abroad is the cutoffs in our universities is just crazy. Like last year English honors was like 100%. So anybody who's got less than 100% is not getting in. So sometimes kids are also forced to go abroad because they just don't make the marks that you need to get into colleges here. And again, it's a question of demand and supply. So we also the government needs to incentivize and make sure that there are many, many more good universities that are set up in India. And I promise you, as many as we set up, we will fill up. So it's never a competition between anybody. We really just need to do this for the people of this country.
Definitely. I think that was a question that I really wanted to know the answer of. So that's one thing I really wanted.
Okay. So the other difference is that Indian universities, the traditional Indian universities, are quite bureaucratic. And I mean, my experience is of Delhi University. They have very rigid rules. It's difficult to introduce innovative things. It's difficult to get accountability of even the staff. So it's kind of difficult to make some big changes. You have to stick to the within the framework, and within the framework every college is trying to do whatever best they can, and sort of inspire their children best they can. There are some new Indian universities like a Ashoka University or a Kriya University, which I would say is very much at par with a good university abroad, and one of the better universities abroad. They have strict parameters of kids getting in, the experience that they provide. It's comparable to anything abroad. So I would say that again, we need to open more universities.
Definitely. And actually, I don't know if this is true, but there's like a propaganda in this country that it's like tougher to get into a college abroad, whereas it's really not. Indian colleges are equally as tough to get into. So yeah.
Yes,
To-
it's very tough. It's very
yeah,
tough. I actually think that it would be easier to get into a HBS than a IIM Ahmedabad.
yeah, totally. So my
Yeah.
next question is, what is your favorite book and one you recommend to someone in my age group?
So, one of your questions was about gratitude, which sort of really, struck a chord with me. And I feel that for all of us, gratitude is a very, very important thing. Just to remind ourselves how fortunate we are, and how every little thing in our body is working, and how fortunate we are that we have the people around us. So many things, and we look around, people are not as fortunate as us, and it's also our job to do something about it, apart from just being grateful. So one of the books that I read a long time ago, and I was just going to Google to see who has written it, is a book called 29 Gifts, which was actually a gift to me by somebody. And it talks about a lady whose life was going through many challenges, and she came across somebody who told her that, for 29 days in a row, give a small gift to somebody every single day. So it could be a gift of your time, it could be picking up the phone and asking somebody who you've not spoken to. And if there is nobody else, it's 10 rupees that you give to somebody at a traffic light. But every single day, do that. And on one side, write what you did. And on the other side of the paper, notice what are the gifts that people gave you in that day. And I actually did that exercise, and I would highly recommend it to everybody. And it was really wonderful, because then you notice the tiny little things that everybody is doing to make your life happy and easier.
Wow. Definitely, I think that is something I will do in the coming.
But I have now forgotten who had written that book, so Google it for me.
I'll just search it up and I'll write it down. So
Yeah.
thanks for that recommendation. I will definitely read it. And my last question is, what is your number one tip for youngsters like me who wish to be entrepreneurs when they grow up?
Okay, so I have a little bit more than a one tip, but okay, so I would say a couple of things that, say yes to every opportunity. Don't be scared. Say yes, then go figure out how you're going to do it. And later on, if you're not able to, then that's different. But, don't let go of opportunities. Create your business in a passion area. If you are passionate about that particular thing, then create your business in that. Don't do it because tech is the new area to go into or whatever. About build for the long term. Okay, don't just don't build for the short term. Build something that you are proud of. Build something that will add to will help people. Build something that will make the country proud. Also, if you are an entrepreneur and you're looking for investors, look for investors that will give you more than just funding. Because funding is actually the easiest thing to come by. The harder thing is to have someone who's genuinely interested in you, who is willing to mentor you, who's willing to open doors for you. So if you are looking for investors, look for more than just funding. Look for somebody who has that common vision with you. And I would say, look at value, creating value. It's not about just valuation, but it's about value.
I think that is something that I will definitely keep in mind when I start my business. So thank you so much for sharing those amazing tips, and I think everyone will learn something from that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that concludes my chat with Ms Vasvi Bharat Ram. Here are two of my key learnings from this chat. First, an educational institute's success cannot be measured in terms of profit, nor in a number of exam toppers. Running educational institutions is a tricky business. It is not right to compare them to profit seeking companies, nor one that exists only to produce exam toppers. The best educational institutions measure happiness quotients of students, teachers, and parents. If each student and every teacher looks forward to coming to school every to learn and grow, that's success. Second, it is probably easier to get admission into Harvard than IIM Ahmedabad. Many Indian students underestimate the value of our own educational institutions, as well as how high the demand is to get into the premier Indian institute. While most of us youngsters dream about going abroad to study, the reality is that our own institutions are just as highly valued, and it takes a lot of hard work for students to get into them. Talking to Ms. Vasvi Bharat Ram has been such a positive experience for me. As a school going student, today I got to see education from a whole new perspective. If you enjoyed watching, please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll be releasing my next leadership podcast very soon. Till then, think positive, have big goals, and focus on the road ahead.